In the rundown livestock auction on the outskirts of Montana, a skeletal horse trembled in the corner, dismissed as worthless by every passing buyer. His ribs protruded sharply against his dull coat, and his eyes held a haunting emptiness that made most people look away. But when 17-year-old Sarah Mitchell locked eyes with him, she saw something that would change both their lives forever. With just $50 in her pocket, she made a decision that left everyone shaking their heads in disbelief. What happened next would transform this broken horse into a legend that no one could have imagined. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn wind whistled through the gaps in the weathered wooden boards of Sterling Valley Livestock Auction. The facility had seen better days, its paint peeling and metal roof rusted from decades of harsh Montana winters. Inside, the atmosphere crackled with the energy of serious buyers, their weathered faces scrutinizing each animal that entered the ring with calculating precision. Sarah Mitchell stood at the back of the crowd, her worn leather boots scuffed from long hours working at her aunt's small ranch. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy braid, and her second-hand denim jacket barely kept out the chill. She wasn't supposed to be here. The $50 in her pocket was meant for new school supplies, but something had drawn her to the auction. That day, a feeling she couldn't explain. The morning progressed with a parade of quality stock. Quarter horses with gleaming coats brought impressive bids, while sturdy draft horses earned appreciative nods from experienced ranchers. Each sale was punctuated by the rapid-fire chatter of the auctioneer and the sharp rap of his gavel. But as the day wore on, the energy in the room shifted. The premium stock had all been sold, and now it was time for what the regulars called the cleanup, horses that were considered barely worth the cost of transport. The crowd thinned considerably, leaving only a handful of bargain hunters and curiosity seekers. That's when they brought him in. The horse could barely walk, each step seemingly requiring monumental effort. His coat, which might once have been a rich bay, was now a patchy mess of dull brown and exposed skin. His head hung low, mane matted with dirt and neglect. But it was his eyes that caught Sarah's attention. Deep pools of darkness that held neither fear nor hope, just a quiet resignation. Next up, lot number 247, the auctioneer announced, his voice notably less enthusiastic. Male, approximately 6 years old, no papers, no known history. Murmurs rippled through the remaining crowd, none of them kind. Wouldn't waste the bullet? One man muttered. Probably sick, might contaminate a whole stable, another added. What's the minimum bid? Someone called out, more as a joke than genuine interest. Starting at $50, the auctioneer replied, though his tone suggested he doubted even that modest sum would be reached. Sarah's hand shot up before she could second-guess herself. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. $50 from the young lady in the back. Do I hear 60? Silence fell over the room. Several people turned to stare at Sarah, their expressions ranging from amusement to pity to contempt. "Girl, you don't want that nag," a heavy-set man in a cowboy hat called out. "Save your money for something worth feeding." But Sarah stood her ground, her heart pounding but her gaze steady as she looked at the horse. For a brief moment he lifted his head, and their eyes met. In that instant, she saw something flicker in those dark depths, a spark of life, barely visible, but undeniably present. $50 going once, the auctioneer called, his voice carrying a note of relief. At the prospect of moving on, $50 going twice, sold to the young lady in the back. As Sarah made her way to the office to complete the paperwork, she could hear the whispers following her. Poor kid doesn't know what she's gotten herself into. That horse won't last a month. Waste of good money. The elderly clerk processing her payment looked at her with grandmotherly concern. Sweetheart, are you sure about this? That horse. Well, he's not exactly a good investment. Sarah pulled the crumpled $50 bill from her pocket, her entire savings from months of odd jobs and birthday money. I'm sure, she said quietly, though her stomach churned with uncertainty. When she returned to the holding area, a stockyard worker was already preparing to lead the horse out. He handled the rope roughly, clearly viewing the animal as nothing more than an inconvenience to be dealt with. He's mine, Sarah said, stepping forward. I'll take him. The worker shrugged and handed her the lead rope. Your funeral, kid. What are you even going to do with him? Sarah took the rope gently, moving closer to the horse. Up close, his condition was even worse than she'd first thought. Old scars crisscrossed his flanks, telling a story of past abuse or neglect. His hooves were overgrown and cracked, and every breath seemed to require effort. First, she said more to the horse than the worker, I'm going to give him a name. She studied his face, noting how, despite his weakened state, he held himself with a quiet dignity. Thunder, she decided, because sometimes the most powerful storms come from the quietest skies. The walk home was slow and difficult. Thunder's weakness was evident in every step, and several times Sarah worried he might collapse. But she talked to him constantly, her voice soft and encouraging. Just a little further, boy. You can do this. I believe in you. The sun was setting by the time they reached her aunt's small ranch. The property wasn't much, just 10 acres, with a modest house, a small barn, and a few paddocks. But to Sarah it was home, and now it would be Thunder's home too. Aunt May was waiting on the porch, her weathered face a mix of emotions as she watched them approach. Sarah Beth Mitchell, she said, using her niece's full name in a way that suggested a lecture was coming. Please tell me you didn't spend your school money on that horse. Sarah met her aunt's gaze. I had to, Aunt May. Nobody else was going to give him a chance. May walked down the steps, her limp from an old riding accident more pronounced in the evening chill. She circled Thunder slowly, her experienced eye taking in every detail of his condition. Finally she sighed. Well, you've certainly picked yourself a project. She paused, then added more softly, Your mother was the same way, you know. Never could turn away from a creature in need. The mention of Sarah's mother, who had passed away 3 years ago, brought tears to her eyes. Do you think she would have understood? May's expression softened. Oh, honey, she would have been right there bidding with you. She squared her shoulders. Well, no use standing around in the dark. Let's get this boy settled in for the night. Tomorrow, we'll see what we're really dealing with. That night, after making sure Thunder was safely stabled with fresh water and small portions of hay, May had warned against overfeeding him in his weakened state, Sarah sat on her bed, worry gnawing at her stomach. The reality of what she'd done was setting in. She knew nothing about rehabilitating a severely neglected horse. She had no money for vet bills or special feed. And what if the others at the auction were right? What if she'd just bought herself a heartbreak? But when she closed her eyes, she saw Thunder's gaze meeting hers in that moment at the auction. There had been something there. something that told her this horse wasn't ready to give up. He just needed someone to believe in him first. From her bedside table, Sarah picked up the photo of her mother on horseback, taken just months before the accident that took her life. Her mom had always said that the greatest gifts often come disguised as challenges. "Well, Mum," Sarah whispered, "I think I just found myself one big challenge." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As she drifted off to sleep, her mind was already racing with plans. Tomorrow would begin a journey neither she nor Thunder could have imagined. A journey that would prove that sometimes the greatest champions come from the most unlikely beginnings. Dawn broke over Sterling Valley with a gentle warmth that belied the challenges ahead. Sarah woke before sunrise, her mind already focused on Thunder. Making her way to the barn, she found her aunt had beaten her there, examining the horse in the soft morning light. "His temperature's normal," May reported, withdrawing her hand from Thunder's neck. "That's one blessing at least, but we've got our work cut out for us." Sarah approached slowly, noting how Thunder watched her with cautious interest. Different from the empty stare of yesterday. She offered her hand, palm up, and waited. After a moment's hesitation, Thunder stretched his neck forward, nostrils flaring as he caught her scent. "First things first," May said, her voice carrying the authority of decades of horse experience. "We need Doc Reynolds to look him over. No point making plans until we know what we're dealing with." The local veterinarian arrived an hour later, his ancient truck rattling up the gravel driveway. Doc Reynolds was a tall, lean man with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen just about everything in his 40 years of practice. His expression remained neutral as he conducted his examination, but Sarah could read concern in the set of his shoulders. "Well?" she asked, when he finally straightened up, unable to contain her anxiety any longer. "He's severely malnourished, that's obvious," Doc Reynolds began, pulling off his gloves. "There's muscle atrophy, hoof problems, and some old injuries that never healed properly, but—" He paused, studying Thunder thoughtfully. "There's no sign of disease. His heart and lungs are strong, surprisingly so given his condition. With proper care, he has a chance." Sarah's heart leapt, but the doctor wasn't finished. "However," he continued, "this won't be quick or easy. We're looking at months of rehabilitation, special feed requirements, regular care for those hooves, and careful exercise to rebuild his strength. It won't be cheap either." Sarah's face fell. I don't have much money," she admitted. Doc Reynolds looked at her for a long moment, then smiled slightly. "Tell you what, I've got a proposition for you. I need help around the clinic. On weekends, filing, cleaning, basic assistance. It's not glamorous work, but I'll credit your hours against Thunder's care." "Really?" Sarah's eyes widened. "You'd do that?" "Your mother was one of the best horse trainers I ever knew," he replied softly. "She had a gift for seeing potential in the ones others gave up on. Looks like you inherited that from her." With the immediate medical concerns addressed and a treatment plan in place, Sarah threw herself into Thunder's rehabilitation. Each day began before sunrise and ended long after sunset. She learned to mix special feed combinations, clean and dress old wounds, and perform basic physical therapy exercises. May watched her niece with growing pride, noting how Sarah never complained about the extra work or the loss of her free time. Even when exhaustion was evident in every line of her body, she maintained the same gentle patience with Thunder, speaking to him constantly in that soft, encouraging voice. The first major breakthrough came 3 weeks into their journey. Sarah had been leading Thunder through his daily walk, short exercises to help rebuild his strength, when a rabbit burst from the bushes. Thunder startled, rearing slightly, but instead of pulling away from Sarah, he moved closer to her, seeking reassurance. It was a small moment, but it marked the beginning of trust. As autumn deepened into winter, Thunder's transformation began to show. His coat, properly nourished and groomed daily, developed a healthy sheen. The worst of his ribs no longer showed, and his eyes had lost that haunted emptiness, replaced by an alert intelligence that sometimes bordered on mischievous. Working at Doc Reynolds' clinic proved to be an education in itself. Sarah absorbed everything she could about equine health and rehabilitation. She learned to recognize signs of distress, to administer basic treatments, and to understand the complex relationship between physical and emotional healing in horses. One cold December morning, Sarah arrived at the barn to find Thunder had managed to knock over his water bucket, soaking his bedding. As she cleaned up the mess, she found herself laughing instead of feeling frustrated. "You're feeling pretty good about yourself, aren't you?" she asked him. Thunder nudged her shoulder, nearly knocking her over, and she laughed again. "Yeah, I thought so." May, watching from the doorway, smiled. "You know, he's starting to remind me of another horse I once knew. Your mother's first rescue, a stallion everyone said was too wild to tame. She proved them wrong, just like you're doing now." Sarah paused in her work. "Tell me about him." May leaned against the doorframe, her eyes distant with memory. "His name was Midnight Star. Your mother found him at a ranch that was closing down. He'd been branded dangerous, scheduled for slaughter. But she saw something in him, the same way you saw something in Thunder. What happened to him? Became one of the finest cutting horses in the county. Won your mother her first championship." May's voice softened. "She always said the ones that test you the most teach you the most." As winter progressed, Sarah began to notice something remarkable about Thunder. Despite his initial weakness, he possessed a natural grace in his movements. Once he gained enough strength to trot comfortably, his stride showed hints of exceptional athleticism. Doc Reynolds noticed it too. During one of Thunder's checkups, he watched the horse move with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "carefully with the right training, this horse could be more than just a pasture ornament. He's got good conformation under all that damage, and his movement. There's something special there." Sarah had been thinking the same thing, but hearing it from Doc Reynolds made it feel more real. "Do you really think so?" "I do. But Sarah," he hesitated, "if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, you need to understand something. Taking a horse from basic rehabilitation to competitive fitness is a whole different challenge. It requires specialized training, equipment, facilities, things that cost money." Sarah nodded, determination settling over her features. "Then I'll find a way to make it happen." That evening she sat at the kitchen table with May, working out a plan. She would continue at Doc Reynolds's clinic, but she also took on additional jobs, mucking stalls at neighboring farms, helping with basic training for other horses, even babysitting for local families. Every dollar went into what she called the Thunder Fund. May contributed too, teaching Sarah exercises and training techniques she'd learned from years of working with horses. They started small, basic groundwork, building Thunder's confidence and trust along with his strength. Sarah read every book she could find on horse training and rehabilitation, often staying up late into the night studying after her chores were done. The local feed store owner, Mr. Jenkins, became another unexpected ally. Impressed by Sarah's dedication, he offered her discount prices on Thunder's special feed and supplements. "My wife would kill me if she knew the deals I'm giving you," he confided with a wink, "but she's got a soft spot for good hearts and hard workers." As winter began to loosen its grip on Sterling Valley, Thunder's progress accelerated. His muscle tone improved dramatically, and his personality emerged more each day. He was intelligent and eager to learn, though he could also be stubborn when he chose. Sarah discovered he loved having his ears scratched, but hated being rushed through anything. He developed a habit of stealing her hat if she wasn't paying attention, holding it just out of reach until she offered him an apple in exchange. One crisp March morning, Sarah arrived at the barn to find Thunder standing at his stall door, nickering softly in greeting. The sound stopped her in her tracks. It was the first time he'd vocalized to her. Tears pricked at her eyes as she realized how far they'd come from that day at the auction. "You know what, boy?" she said, reaching up to stroke his now gleaming neck. "I think it's time we showed everyone what you can really do." Thunder pressed his forehead against her chest, and in that moment, Sarah knew they were ready for the next chapter of their journey. The broken horse from the auction was gone, replaced by a proud, strong animal with a spirit that refused to be defeated. Now it was time to prove to the world what she had known all along, that sometimes the greatest champions are the ones everyone else threw away. Looking into Thunder's bright, trusting eyes, Sarah made him a promise. "We're just getting started, boy. Just you wait. We're going to write a story they'll never forget." Spring brought new energy to Sterling Valley, and with it, Sarah's ambitions for Thunder took shape. The local riding academy, Riverbrook Stables, was hosting their annual spring showcase, an event that attracted riders and trainers from across the county. Sarah knew this could be their chance to prove Thunder's worth, but first they needed proper training. May introduced Sarah to Eleanor Richardson, a retired dressage trainer who lived on the outskirts of town. Eleanor was known for her unconventional methods and her ability to see potential in unlikely places. When Sarah arrived at Eleanor's modest farm leading Thunder, the older woman studied them both with piercing blue eyes. "May told me about your rescue," Eleanor said, circling Thunder with a critical eye. $50 at auction, was it?" "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied, standing straighter. Eleanor stopped in front of Thunder, looking directly into his eyes. Thunder met her gaze steadily, ears forward with interest. A smile tugged at Eleanor's lips. Well, well, there's intelligence in those eyes, and pride too. Not arrogance, mind you, but the good kind of pride, the kind that comes from overcoming adversity. She turned to Sarah. "I don't usually take on students anymore, but May called in an old favor. I'll train you both, but understand this. I don't teach for ribbons or glory. I teach for the partnership between horse and rider. Are you ready for that?" Sarah nodded eagerly. "Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what I want." Eleanor's training methods proved unlike anything Sarah had expected. Instead of immediately mounting Thunder, they spent weeks on groundwork exercises that seemed more like dance than traditional horse training. Eleanor taught Sarah to read Thunder's subtle body language, to communicate through the slightest shift in position or energy. "Horses are mirrors," Eleanor explained one morning as they worked in the round pen. They reflect our intentions, our doubts, our fears. When you're truly in harmony with your horse, it's like a conversation without words. The lessons were challenging, often leaving Sarah physically and mentally exhausted. Eleanor was demanding but fair, pushing them to their limits while remaining attuned to Thunder's needs. She noticed how Thunder seemed to thrive on problem-solving exercises, his eyes brightening whenever presented with a new challenge. "That's unusual," Eleanor remarked after Thunder masterfully navigated a complex ground pattern. "Most horses prefer routine, but this one, he actually enjoys figuring things out. Your $50 horse has the mind of a champion." Sarah beamed with pride, but Eleanor wasn't finished. "However, a good mind isn't enough. To compete, you need proper equipment. That old saddle of yours won't do for serious training." Sarah's heart sank. Quality riding equipment was expensive, and despite her multiple jobs, she barely covered Thunder's basic needs. Seeing her expression, Eleanor held up a hand. "Follow me," she said, leading them to her tack room. Inside, she pulled out a beautiful leather saddle, well worn but meticulously maintained. "This was my competition saddle back in my day. It's yours to use on one condition. You treat it with the same care and respect you show that horse." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll work harder than you've ever worked before," Eleanor replied firmly, "because from now on we're training for real." The intensity of their training increased dramatically. Eleanor taught Sarah the nuances of collection and extension, the precise timing needed for seamless transitions, and the importance of maintaining rhythm even through complex movements. Thunder proved to be an apt student, his natural athletic ability becoming more evident as his confidence grew. One breakthrough came during a particularly challenging lesson on lateral work. Thunder had been struggling with shoulder-in, a movement requiring both physical strength and mental focus. After several frustrated attempts, Sarah felt him tense beneath her. "Stop!" Eleanor called out. "Both of you are overthinking this. Sarah, close your eyes." Sarah complied, though uncertainty showed on her face. "Now forget about the movement. Forget about getting it right. Just feel his breathing. Let your body move with his." As Sarah relaxed, something shifted. Thunder's tension melted away, and suddenly the movement they'd been struggling with flowed naturally. When Sarah opened her eyes, Eleanor was smiling. "That's the secret," she said softly. "True partnership isn't about control. It's about trust and harmony." The lessons struck deep, becoming a turning point in their training. Sarah learned to trust Thunder's instincts as much as her own, and their progress accelerated. They began to move as one, each anticipating the other's thoughts, almost before they formed. As the spring showcase approached, Eleanor introduced them to more advanced movements. Thunder particularly excelled at extended trot, his natural grace transforming into powerful, floating strides that drew admiring glances from other riders at the facility. Word began to spread about the auction, horses' transformation. People who had dismissed Thunder as worthless now found excuses to stop by Eleanor's farm, watching from the fence as he performed movements that many well-bred horses struggled to master. One afternoon, a sleek car pulled up to the farm. A well-dressed man emerged, introducing himself as James Morrison, a prominent horse trainer from a prestigious stable in the next county. "I heard about your horse," he said, watching Thunder work. Quite remarkable, really. I might be interested in purchasing him. For the right price, of course. Sarah's response was immediate and firm. He's not for sale. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Everyone has a price, young lady. Think about it. With that money you could buy a properly bred horse, one with papers and a proven bloodline. Thunder has nothing to prove to anyone, Sarah replied, her voice steady. And he's not going anywhere. Later, Eleanor found Sarah in the barn, vigorously grooming Thunder, as if to reassure herself he was still there. "You know," Eleanor said, leaning against the stall door, "Morrison's offer was probably substantial." "It doesn't matter," Sarah said, not pausing in her grooming. "Thunder's worth isn't in dollars and cents. It's in every obstacle he's overcome, every challenge he's faced. He's taught me more about courage and determination than any properly bred horse ever could." Eleanor nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Now let's talk about your showcase program. I think it's time we showed everyone exactly what a $50 horse can do." The week before the showcase, they practiced their routine until every transition was polished, every movement refined. Eleanor had helped them choreograph a program that highlighted Thunder's strengths while acknowledging how far they'd come. It included elements of classical dressage, mixed with more dramatic movements that showcased Thunder's natural flair. The night before the showcase, Sarah stayed late at the barn. Thunder dozed as she sat in his stall, sharing her thoughts as she had so many times before. "Remember when you could barely walk down the road?" she asked softly. "Look at you now. No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know how proud I am of you. We've already won just by being here." Thunder lifted his head, gently lipping at her hair, his way of showing affection. In that quiet moment, Sarah felt a peace settle over her. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight she knew with absolute certainty that saving Thunder had been the best decision of her life. As she walked back to the house under a sky full of stars, Sarah remembered her mother's words about the greatest gifts coming disguised as challenges. Thunder had been more than a challenge. He had become a teacher, a partner, and a testament to the power of believing in something everyone else had given up on. Tomorrow they would show the world what was possible when you looked past appearances and saw the heart beneath. But tonight, Sarah was content knowing that their greatest victory had already been won in the daily triumphs that had transformed a broken horse into a proud partner. The morning of the Riverbrook Spring Showcase dawned clear and crisp, the kind of perfect spring day that seemed crafted for new beginnings. Sarah arrived at Eleanor's farm before sunrise, finding Thunder already alert in his stall, as if he sensed the importance of the day ahead. "Big day, boy," Sarah whispered, running a brush over his gleaming coat. Thunder's transformation was stunning. His once dull bay coat now shone with health, rippling over well-defined muscles. His eyes, once vacant, sparkled with intelligence and energy. Eleanor appeared at the stall door, carrying a garment bag. "A proper rider needs proper attire," she said, unzipping the bag to reveal a beautiful dark blue show jacket and white breeches. "These were my daughter's before she went off to college. They should fit you perfectly." Sarah touched the fabric reverently. "Eleanor, I can't—" "You can and you will," Eleanor interrupted firmly. "You've earned this. Both of you have." The Riverbrook stables grounds were already bustling when they arrived. Sleek horses stepped off trailers, their coats gleaming in the morning sun. Riders in pristine show clothes walked courses and warmed up in the practice ring. Sarah felt a flutter of nerves as she noticed the quality of the horses and the obvious experience of their riders. As she led Thunder toward the warm-up area, whispers followed them. Some recognized him as the auction horse, while others simply noticed his unusual presence among the well-bred show horses. Thunder, however, seemed unaffected by the attention, carrying himself with quiet dignity. "Well, look who decided to join us," a sharp voice called out. Sarah turned to see Madison Wells, daughter of the region's most prominent horse breeder, astride her expensive warm-blood stallion. "Isn't that the rescue case everyone's been talking about?" Sarah felt her cheeks flush, but kept her voice steady. "His name is Thunder." Madison's laugh was cutting. "How quaint. You do realize this is a serious competition, right? Not some feel-good charity event?" Before Sarah could respond, Eleanor appeared beside them. "The only thing that matters in that ring is the partnership between horse and rider," she said coolly. "Everything else is just noise." As they walked away, Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted Thunder's bridle. Eleanor noticed immediately. "Channel it," she advised. "Use those nerves to sharpen your focus. Remember what I taught you about energy. Your horse feels everything you feel." Sarah took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. She thought about their journey, from that first day at the auction to every small victory along the way. The nerves didn't disappear, but they transformed into something else: determination. Their warm-up went smoothly, Thunder responding to Sarah's aids with the sensitivity they'd developed through countless hours of training. Eleanor watched with approval as they moved through their exercises, making only minor adjustments to their rhythm and position. As they waited for their turn to perform, Sarah watched other competitors complete their programs. The level of riding was impressive, with complex movements executed with obvious skill. Madison's performance drew particular applause, her expensive stallion moving with mechanical precision through difficult patterns. Finally, it was their turn. As they entered the arena, Sarah heard the announcer's voice. "Next to perform, entry number 23, Sarah Mitchell riding Thunder." The arena fell quiet, all eyes on the unlikely pair. Sarah took a centering breath, feeling Thunder's steady presence beneath her. In that moment, all the doubts and whispers faded away. This was their time to show what was possible when you believed in something everyone else had discarded. Their program began with a collected trot, Thunder moving with elegant control that belied his humble origins. As they flowed into their first extended trot, gasps rippled through the crowd. Thunder's natural gift for movement shone through, his strides powerful and floating, yet perfectly balanced. Each transition came smoothly, each movement flowing naturally into the next. This wasn't just a demonstration of technical skills. It was a dance between partners who trusted each other completely. When they performed a difficult sequence of lateral movements, Sarah could feel Thunder's joy in the work, his enthusiasm, making each step more dramatic. The pinnacle of their program came near the end, a series of movements that showcased both Thunder's athletic ability and the depth of their partnership. As they moved through collected canter to extended canter and back, Sarah felt as though they were flying, completely in harmony with each other. Their final halt was square and immaculate, Thunder standing proudly as applause erupted from the crowd. Sarah's heart swelled as she leaned forward to pat his neck, feeling the soft warmth of his coat under her hand. As they left the arena, Eleanor was waiting for them, her eyes suspiciously bright. "That," she said firmly, "was what true partnership looks like. The scores were announced an hour later, when Sarah's name was called for second place overall, just behind Madison Wells. The crowd's reaction was enthusiastic. Even some of the skeptics who had dismissed Thunder earlier now approached to admire him. Madison, however, was less than gracious. "Beginner's luck," she said loudly as she passed Sarah. "Or maybe the judges were feeling charitable today." "Actually," a new voice interjected, "the scoring was based purely on technical merit and artistic impression." The speaker was David Chen, a well-known trainer and clinician who had been watching the competition. "And what we saw today was something special." He turned to Sarah. "Your horse moves with remarkable natural talent, but what impressed me most was your partnership. That's something that can't be bought or trained into existence. It has to be earned through trust and understanding." Chen handed Sarah his card. "I'd like to work with you both, if you're interested. I think you're ready for the next level." As the excitement of the day began to wind down, Sarah found a quiet moment with Thunder in his stall. The ribbon hung proudly on his door, but it wasn't the placement that mattered most to her. What mattered was that they had shown everyone that worth isn't determined by price tags or pedigrees, but by heart and determination. May and Eleanor joined her, bringing a celebratory picnic dinner to share in the barn. As they sat on hay bales, sharing sandwiches and stories, May raised her thermos in a toast. "To second chances," she said, "and to seeing value where others see nothing." "And to $50 champions," Eleanor added with a wink. Sarah looked at Thunder, who was contentedly munching his own celebration treat of fresh carrots. In her mind, she could still see that broken horse from the auction, but now she also saw everything he had become, and everything they would become together. David Chen's card sat in her pocket, a tangible symbol of new possibilities ahead. But for now, Sarah was content to simply be here, celebrating with the people who had believed in them from the start, beside the horse who had taught her that the greatest victories often come from taking chances on the things others throw away. As the evening light filtered through the barn windows, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning of their story. Thunder had proven himself to be more than anyone could have imagined, but more importantly, he had shown that sometimes the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars and cents. They can only be measured in heart, determination, and the courage to believe in something when no one else will. The invitation to train with David Chen opened doors Sarah hadn't dared dream about. His facility, Mountain Vista Equestrian Center, was a prestigious training ground where talented riders came to develop their skills. When Sarah first drove through the impressive gates, Thunder standing calmly in the trailer behind her, she felt both excitement and apprehension flutter in her stomach. The facility was immaculate, gleaming stables, perfectly maintained arenas, and state-of-the-art equipment everywhere she looked. As Sarah unloaded Thunder, she noticed other horses in the nearby paddocks, expensive warmbloods and thoroughbreds, with championship bloodlines. Yet Thunder carried himself with quiet confidence, unfazed by his grand surroundings. David met them at the barn, his warm smile putting Sarah at ease. "Welcome to Mountain Vista. Let's see what you and Thunder can do today." Their first session was eye-opening. David's teaching style was different from Eleanor's, but equally insightful. He focused on the subtle nuances of advanced movements, teaching Sarah to feel the smallest shifts in Thunder's balance and energy. "Your horse has something rare," David observed as they worked. "Natural talent, yes, but also adaptability. He thinks about what you're asking, finds ways to make it work. That's not something you can train into a horse. It's either there or it isn't. The other riders at the facility initially kept their distance, viewing Sarah and Thunder with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. However, as days turned into weeks, attitudes began to shift. Thunder's extraordinary movement quality and eager personality won admirers, while Sarah's dedication and work ethic earned respect. One morning, as Sarah arrived for their training session, she found David deep in conversation with a distinguished-looking woman. "Sarah," he called out, "I'd like you to meet someone. This is Victoria Hawthorne." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Victoria Hawthorne was a legend in the equestrian world, known for discovering and developing exceptional talent. Her approval could open doors to international competition. Victoria studied Thunder with an expert's eye as Sarah put him through their warm-up routine. "Remarkable," she murmured. "His movement quality and that connection with his rider. David tells me you found him at an auction." "Yes, ma'am, for $50. Victoria's eyebrows rose. $50. Well, that might be the best investment in equestrian history. She turned to David. "You're right about them. They're ready for more." That conversation led to an unexpected opportunity. Victoria was organizing an exclusive exhibition event, the Summit Showcase, featuring the most promising up-and-coming pairs in the region. She wanted Sarah and Thunder to participate. "It's not just about competing," Victoria explained. "It's about showing the equestrian world what's possible. Your story, your partnership with Thunder, it could inspire others to look beyond traditional definitions of value." The invitation was thrilling, but it came with challenges. The Summit Showcase was months away, requiring intensive training and preparation. The entry fee alone was more than Sarah had ever spent on anything, and there would be additional costs for transportation, specialized equipment, and boarding. When Sarah expressed her concerns about the financial aspects, Victoria waved them away. "Consider it an investment in the future of the sport. Sometimes the most valuable contributions come from unexpected places." The next few months transformed Sarah's life into a whirlwind of training, working extra jobs, and learning everything she could about high-level competition. David pushed them harder than ever, introducing increasingly complex movements and combinations. Thunder thrived on the challenges, his natural intelligence shining through as he mastered new skills. There were frustrating days, of course, times when a movement wouldn't click, or when exhaustion made everything feel impossible. But through it all, their bond only grew stronger. One particularly difficult day, after struggling with a challenging sequence, Sarah found herself fighting back tears of frustration. Thunder, sensing her mood, gently pressed his forehead against her chest, something he'd done since their earliest days together. The gesture reminded her of how far they'd come and how much they'd already overcome. "You're right, boy," she whispered, scratching his favorite spot behind his ears. "We've faced bigger challenges than this." As the showcase approached, Sarah received an unexpected visit from Eleanor. Her former trainer watched them work with David, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Afterward, she pulled Sarah aside. "You've grown," she said simply. "Both of you have. But remember what I taught you. The ribbon isn't the prize, the partnership is." The day before they were scheduled to leave for the showcase, Sarah took Thunder for a quiet trail ride, something they hadn't had time for lately with their intense training schedule. As they walked through peaceful woodland paths, she reflected on their journey. That broken horse from the auction had become more than just a champion in training. He had become a symbol of possibility. Their story had spread through the equestrian community, inspiring others to look beyond surface appearances and conventional wisdom. Sarah had received letters from young riders and horse lovers telling her how Thunder's story had touched them. One girl wrote about saving her babysitting money to help rehabilitate a rescue horse. Another shared how she'd finally found the courage to pursue her riding dreams despite others' doubts. That evening, as Sarah prepared their equipment for the journey, May found her in the barn. "Your mother would be so proud," she said softly, "not just of what you've achieved, but of who you've become through all of this." Sarah hugged her, "Aunt," tightly. "I couldn't have done any of it without you, you know. You believed in us from the start." May smiled, wiping away a tear. "Sometimes all anyone needs is one person to believe in them. You were that person for Thunder, and look what happened." The next morning, as they loaded Thunder into the trailer for the journey to the showcase, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose. They weren't just going to compete, they were going to show the world that extraordinary things can happen when you have the courage to see beyond appearances and the determination to nurture hidden potential. Thunder loaded calmly, his quiet confidence a far cry from the trembling horse who could barely walk into a trailer months ago. As Sarah closed the trailer door, she patted his neck through the window. "Ready for our next adventure, boy?" Thunder's soft nicker was all the answer she needed. Together, they were ready to write the next chapter of their remarkable story, one that had begun with a $50 bet on a broken horse and had transformed into an inspiration for dreamers everywhere. The summit showcase venue took Sarah's breath away. Nestled in a picturesque valley, the world-class facility featured multiple arenas, state-of-the-art stabling, and architecture that seemed to blend seamlessly with the mountain landscape. As they drove through the gates, Sarah spotted television crews setting up equipment. This event would be broadcast regionally, reaching audiences far beyond the equestrian community. Thunder traveled well, stepping off the trailer with his characteristic, quiet confidence. As Sarah led him to their assigned stall, she noticed the nameplates on neighboring stalls, champions and upcoming stars from across the country. Yet Thunder's simple nameplate, reading Thunder Rider Sarah Mitchell, filled her with as much pride as any championship title. Victoria Hawthorne appeared as they were getting settled, accompanied by a film crew. "We're doing special features on selected competitors," she explained. "Your story needs to be told." The interviewer, a warm-voiced woman named Rachel, sat with Sarah in a quiet corner of the barn. "Tell us about Thunder," she prompted. "How did you know he was special?" Sarah thought carefully before answering. "I didn't. Not really. I just knew he deserved a chance. Everyone deserves at least one person who believes in them completely." As she recounted their journey, from the auction to their current moment, Sarah noticed how the camera crew seemed genuinely moved. When she described Thunder's transformation, Rachel wiped away a tear. "Your story is going to touch so many hearts," she said after they finished. "It's not just about horses, it's about seeing potential where others don't, about having the courage to follow your instincts." The first day of the showcase dawned clear and cool. Sarah arrived at the barn early, finding Thunder alert and eager. As she groomed him, other competitors began arriving, filling the air with nervous energy and excitement. Madison Wells was there, having qualified with her expensive stallion. When she passed Thunder's stall, her usual dismissive expression faltered slightly. Even she couldn't deny how far they'd come. During the warm-up session, Sarah noticed something remarkable. Other riders, particularly younger ones, were watching them intently. She overheard one girl say to her trainer, "See, you don't need a fancy horse to be great, you just need heart." The competition began with individual technical assessments. Each pair performed a series of prescribed movements, demonstrating their mastery of advanced techniques. When it was their turn, Sarah felt an unusual calm settle over her. Thunder performed magnificently, his movements powerful yet precise. The judges' expressions remained neutral, but Sarah caught Victoria smiling from the sidelines. They had shown they belonged here, among the elite. That evening, as competitors gathered for a welcome dinner, Sarah found herself surrounded by curious riders and trainers. They asked about Thunder's rehabilitation, his training program, how she'd known he had such potential. "The truth is," she told them, "Thunder taught me as much as I taught him. He showed me that sometimes the greatest limitations we face are the ones we place on ourselves or allow others to place on us." The next phase of competition brought a unique challenge. Pairs were required to perform freestyle programs, choreographed routines set to music that showcased their partnership and creativity. Sarah and David had spent weeks crafting their program, set to an original composition that began softly, building in intensity like their journey together. The routine incorporated Thunder's natural flair for extended movements while telling their story through dance. As they entered the arena, Sarah felt Thunder's energy shift. He knew this was special. The music began, a gentle piano melody that grew stronger with each note. Their opening movement, a collected trot that burst into a powerful extension, drew gasps from the crowd. What followed was more than just a technical display. Each movement flowed naturally into the next, creating a story of transformation. When they performed a difficult sequence of flying changes, something Thunder had mastered with remarkable ease, the audience broke into spontaneous applause. The final movement was their signature piece, a series of extended trots that seemed to defy gravity, Thunder's natural gift for elevation, making it appear as though they were floating. As the music swelled to its conclusion, they struck their final pose, Thunder standing proud and tall, every inch the champion he had become. The standing ovation that followed brought tears to Sarah's eyes. As they left the arena, Victoria met them with an uncharacteristic hug. "That," she said, firmly, "is what this sport is all about." The results wouldn't be announced until the following day, but something more important had already been achieved. Their performance had shown everyone that excellence knows no pedigree, that champions can come from the most unlikely beginnings. That night, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at Thunder's stall. It was one of the auction workers who had been there the day she bought him. He'd seen their story on the news and driven hours to witness their performance. "I've worked auctions for 20 years, he said, shaking his head in amazement. "Seen thousands of horses come and go. Never thought I'd see anything like this." "You proved us all wrong, girl." Sarah smiled, watching Thunder contentedly munch his hay. He proved himself wrong, too. Sometimes that's the biggest hurdle, believing you can be more than what others see. The final day of competition brought mounting excitement. After a brief warm-up session, competitors gathered for the award ceremony. The atmosphere was electric as placements were announced, starting from 10th place. When only the top 3 remained unannounced, Sarah felt her heart racing. Thunder stood quietly beside her, his presence calming as always. Third place went to a talented young rider from California. Second place was awarded to Madison Wells, who accepted with a tight smile. And our Summit Showcase champion, the announcer's voice rang out, with a performance that redefined what's possible in our sport, Sarah Mitchell and Thunder. The eruption of applause was deafening. As they stepped forward to receive their award, Sarah saw faces in the crowd, May crying openly, Eleanor beaming with pride, David nodding in satisfaction. But most meaningful were the young riders watching with shining eyes, their dreams suddenly seeming more attainable. Victoria presented their trophy, but she wasn't finished. "We have one more announcement," she said into the microphone. "Sarah and Thunder have been selected to represent our region at the International Exhibition in Europe this fall. Their story, their partnership, embodies everything our sport should be about." Sarah's mind spun. Europe, international competition. It seemed impossible, yet here they were. The auction horse and the girl who believed in him headed for the global stage. Later, as the excitement began to settle, Sarah found a quiet moment with Thunder. Around his neck hung their championship ribbon, but he seemed more interested in the apple she'd brought him. "You know what, boy?" she said softly, sharing his treat. "Everyone keeps calling this a Cinderella story, but they're missing the point. This isn't about transforming into something different. It's about becoming what you were always meant to be. You just needed someone to see it." Thunder pressed his forehead against her chest, their familiar gesture of connection. In that moment, Sarah knew that while the trophy was wonderful, their greatest victory had nothing to do with competitions or acclaim. It was in proving that sometimes the greatest champions aren't born in prestigious breeding programs or bought for impressive sums. Sometimes they're found in the forgotten corners, just waiting for someone to believe in them. Their journey was far from over. Europe would bring new challenges, new opportunities to inspire. But for now, Sarah was content to stand with her partner, her friend, her $50 champion, who had changed not just her life, but the lives of countless others who dared to dream beyond the expected. The journey to Europe marked a new chapter in Sarah and Thunder's remarkable story. Preparing for international competition brought challenges they'd never faced before: veterinary certificates, travel arrangements, and specialized training to prepare Thunder for the long flight. But as with everything else, they faced each obstacle together. The support from their community was overwhelming. When word spread about their selection for the international exhibition, local businesses and horse lovers organized fundraisers to help cover travel expenses. The feed store, where Mr. Jenkins had given them discounts, hosted a benefit dinner. The local riding club held a special showcase, with all proceeds going to their journey fund. "See what you've started," May said one evening, showing Sarah a stack of letters that had arrived. "You're not just going to Europe, you're carrying the hopes and dreams of everyone who's ever been told they weren't good enough." The preparation was intense. David arranged for them to train with specialists in international competition, refining their program to meet European standards. Thunder approached each new challenge with his characteristic intelligence and willingness, seeming to understand the importance of what lay ahead. One expert who worked with them, a renowned trainer from Germany named Klaus Weber, was particularly impressed by Thunder's adaptability. "This horse," he said, watching Thunder master a complex movement sequence, "he has what we call Herzensbildung, education of the heart. It cannot be bought or trained. It comes from understanding, from trust, from love of the work. The day of departure arrived sooner than seemed possible. The flight would take Thunder to Amsterdam, where they would train for a week before the exhibition in Vienna. Sarah had never flown before, let alone accompanied a horse on an international flight. But Thunder's calm presence steadied her nerves. In the specialized animal transport area of the airport, other horses showed signs of stress, but Thunder remained composed, taking in his new surroundings with intelligent interest. The flight attendant specialized in equine transport was amazed. "Usually horses with less travel experience are quite anxious," she remarked, "but your boy here seems to take everything in stride." Sarah smiled, remembering the trembling horse from the auction. "He's learned that new experiences aren't always bad ones." The flight was long but smooth. Sarah stayed with Thunder throughout, talking to him softly and ensuring he remained comfortable. When they finally landed in Amsterdam, the morning sun was breaking through clouds, casting the famous Dutch landscape in golden light. Their training facility in the Netherlands was like something from a fairy tale. Centuries-old buildings blending seamlessly with modern equestrian amenities. Other riders from around the world were already there, preparing for the exhibition. Among them was Sofia Petrov, a celebrated Russian rider known for her work with rescued horses. She sought Sarah out immediately, having heard Thunder's story. "In Russia, we have a saying," she told Sarah, watching Thunder explore his new surroundings. "The heart of a horse is measured not in hands, but in the depths of its spirit. Your Thunder, he proves this." The week of preparation flew by. Each day brought new experiences, training sessions with international experts, cultural exchanges with riders from different countries, and preparations for the exhibition. Thunder adapted to the European style with remarkable ease, earning admiration from even the most traditional trainers. One evening, as Sarah walked the grounds with Thunder, she met an elderly Dutch trainer named Henrik van der Meer. He had been watching them train and had a unique perspective to share. "In Europe," he said, his accent thick but warm, "we sometimes become too focused on bloodlines, on papers, on proving worth through pedigree. But your horse, he reminds us of something important, that greatness can come from anywhere, if we have the wisdom to recognize it." The day before they were to travel to Vienna for the exhibition, Sarah received news that made her heart skip. Representatives from the world's most prestigious breeding programs would be attending. Their story had captured international attention, challenging traditional notions about what made a horse valuable. In Vienna, the exhibition venue was breathtaking. The Spanish riding school, home to centuries of equestrian tradition. As Thunder was settled into his stall in the historic building, Sarah felt the weight of history around them, yet somehow they belonged here. The auction horse and the girl who believed in him, ready to show the world what was possible. The exhibition opened with a ceremony celebrating equestrian tradition while embracing the future of the sport. When Thunder entered the arena for their performance, the audience fell silent, having heard the story of the $50 champion. Their program was a testament to everything they'd become. Thunder moved with power and grace, his natural talents refined but never diminished by training. Each movement flowed into the next with fluid precision, telling their story through motion and music. In the grand finale, they performed a newly choreographed sequence that showcased Thunder's extraordinary movement quality. The audience, comprised of some of the most knowledgeable horse people in the world, broke into spontaneous applause. Afterward, the accolades poured in. Breeding program representatives approached with offers, but Sarah politely declined them all. Thunder was more than a collection of desirable traits. He was her partner, her friend, the embodiment of everything she believed about looking beyond surface appearances. A young girl approached them after the exhibition, her eyes shining. She spoke rapidly in German, which Sarah couldn't understand, but her mother translated. She says Thunder gives her hope. She has a rescue pony everyone said would never amount to anything. Now she believes differently. That evening, at a gala celebrating the exhibition's success, Sarah was asked to speak. Standing before the international audience, she found the words coming naturally. Thunder's story isn't just about a horse defying expectations, she said. It's about recognizing that value isn't always found in the obvious places. Sometimes the greatest potential lies in the hearts others have. Overlooked. Every champion doesn't start as a champion. They become one through belief, dedication, and love. As applause filled the historic hall, Sarah caught sight of Thunder through the windows, standing contentedly in his stall. He had come so far from that auction ring, yet in all the ways that mattered, he hadn't changed at all. He was still the same brave, intelligent soul. He had just been given the chance to show the world who he truly was. Their European journey would continue, with invitations to perform and teach at prestigious facilities across the continent. But more importantly, their story had sparked a movement. Riding clubs began creating programs specifically for rescue horses. Trainers started looking beyond traditional metrics of value. Young riders learned that their dreams didn't depend on their resources. They depended on their determination and heart. Back in Thunder's stall that night, Sarah sat with him as she had so many times before. "You know what's amazing?" she said softly. "We came here thinking we were going to prove something to the world. But really, we're just reminding them of something they already knew, that sometimes the most extraordinary things come in ordinary packages." Thunder nickered softly, nudging her pocket where he knew she kept treats. Some things never changed, and Sarah wouldn't have it any other way. They had travelled from a small-town auction to the grandest stages in Europe. But their greatest achievement wasn't in the applause or accolades. It was in the lives they'd touched, the dreams they'd inspired, and the truth they'd proven about. The power of believing in something everyone else had thrown away. As the lights of Vienna twinkled outside, Sarah knew their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more opportunities to inspire, more chances to show the world that every heart holds potential. It just needs someone to believe in it first. Their return to Sterling Valley brought unexpected new challenges and opportunities. The local newspaper's headline read, "Local girl and rescue horse return from European triumph." But Sarah and Thunder's homecoming marked the beginning of an even more meaningful chapter in their journey. News crews and journalists descended upon May's modest ranch, eager to capture the story of the $50 champion who had taken Europe by storm. But Sarah had a different vision for their future. During their time abroad, she'd received countless messages from people inspired by Thunder's story, particularly from children working with rescue horses of their own. "We need to do something with this," Sarah told May one morning, watching Thunder grazing peacefully in his paddock. "Something that helps others find their own thunder." May's eyes sparkled. I might have an idea about that. Together, they developed a plan to transform part of the ranch into a sanctuary and training center for rescue horses. They would call it Thunder's Haven, a place where overlooked horses could find their potential and young riders could learn the value of believing in second chances. The community rallied behind their vision. Local businesses offered construction, materials at cost. Experienced riders volunteered their time. Even Madison Wells, who had once dismissed Thunder, approached Sarah with an unexpected proposal. "My father's breeding program," Madison said, shuffling uncomfortably. "We have connections, resources. Maybe we could help identify rescue horses with special potential. Give them the same chance you gave Thunder." The transformation of the ranch was remarkable. New stables rose alongside the old barn. A covered arena would allow year-round training. But most importantly, paddocks that had stood empty for years began filling with horses, each with their own story of redemption. Their first rescue was a paint mare so traumatized she wouldn't let anyone touch her. Sarah worked with her patiently, using the lessons Thunder had taught her about trust and patience. Within months, the mare was helping teach young riders about gentle horsemanship. Word spread, and soon Thunder's Haven was receiving requests from all over the country. A retired racehorse with anxiety issues, a pony who'd been abused, a draft horse saved from slaughter. Each one found not just sanctuary, but purpose. Thunder took on a new role as mentor to the rescued horses. He seemed to understand his responsibility, approaching nervous newcomers with gentle curiosity, showing them through example that humans could be trusted. Sarah often found him standing watch over the more traumatized horses, his calm presence helping them adjust to their new lives. One memorable case was a thoroughbred named Starlight, discovered at a feedlot, awaiting shipping to slaughter. Despite his desperate situation, something in his eye caught the attention of one of Madison's scouts. When he arrived at Thunder's Haven, he was barely more than skin and bones, much like Thunder had been. Sarah worked with him daily, incorporating everything she'd learned from Thunder's rehabilitation. Starlight's progress was remarkable, and within 6 months he was showing talent for dressage. Under the guidance of a young rider who'd been inspired by Thunder's story, Starlight went on to compete successfully in regional competitions. The success stories multiplied. A rescue pony named Cookie became a beloved therapy horse, helping children with disabilities. A former show jumper named Atlas, discarded after an injury, discovered a talent for teaching beginners the basics of riding. Each horse that found its purpose at Thunder's Haven became part of a growing testament to the power of second chances. Sarah developed a training program that combined traditional horsemanship with the special understanding needed for rescue horses. "Every horse has a story," she would tell her students. "Our job isn't to erase that story, but to help write a new chapter." Thunder remained the heart of the program, demonstrating the extraordinary potential that lay within every rescued horse. His presence alone gave hope to those working with seemingly hopeless cases. If a forgotten auction horse could become an international champion, what other miracles were possible? The most powerful moments came when children visited the sanctuary. Many were from underprivileged backgrounds, never having had the opportunity to interact with horses before. Sarah would tell them Thunder's story, watching their eyes light up with recognition of their own potential. One day, a quiet girl named Lucy visited with her mother. Lucy had selective mutism, speaking only rarely and never to strangers. As Sarah told Thunder's story, she noticed Lucy drawing closer, seemingly transfixed by the gentle giant. To everyone's amazement, Lucy reached out to touch Thunder's nose, and then spoke clearly. "He's like me." People didn't understand him either. These moments reinforced the true purpose of Thunder's Haven. It wasn't just about saving horses. It was about creating a place where both humans and animals could discover their hidden strengths. The sanctuary's reputation grew, attracting visitors from around the world. Veterinary students came to learn about rehabilitation. Trainers studied their methods. But most importantly, people came to find hope. One autumn morning, Sarah stood, watching a group of rescued horses playing in the paddock. Thunder stood beside her, his coat still gleaming despite the grey in his muzzle. Age had touched him gently, adding wisdom to his bearing without diminishing his spirit. "Remember when no one wanted you, boy?" she said softly, scratching his favorite spot. "Now look at all the lives you've changed." A letter had arrived that morning from a girl in Australia who had started her own rescue program inspired by Thunder's story. Similar programs were sprouting up across the globe, each carrying forward the message that value isn't determined by pedigree or price, but by heart. May joined them at the fence, smiling at the sight of new rescue horses frolicking with the sanctuary's residents. "Your mother would be so proud," she said, "not just of what you've achieved, but of what you've inspired others to achieve." Sarah nodded, watching as one of their student volunteers worked patiently with a newly arrived rescue. The girl reminded Sarah of herself at that age, determined, compassionate, unafraid to believe in possibility. Thunder's Haven had become more than just a sanctuary. It was a place of transformation, where broken spirits healed and hidden potential was discovered. Every success story added to Thunder's legacy, proving again and again that sometimes the greatest champions come from the most unexpected places. As the sun set over the sanctuary, painting the sky in brilliant golds and purples, Sarah reflected on their journey. From that desperate auction to the grandest arenas of Europe, and now to this place of healing and hope, each step had led them exactly where they needed to be. Thunder nickered softly, drawing her attention to a new trailer pulling up the driveway. Another rescue was arriving, another story waiting to be rewritten. Sarah smiled, patting Thunder's neck before walking down to meet it. This was their true victory, not the ribbons or accolades, but the chance to help others find their own path to greatness. Every horse that found its purpose at Thunder's Haven, every person who discovered their own strength through working with these remarkable animals was part of a greater story about the power of belief and the endless possibilities that come from giving something, or someone, a chance. As Thunder's Haven flourished, an unexpected opportunity arose that would expand their impact even further. The National Equestrian Federation approached Sarah about creating a formal program for integrating rescue horses into competitive sports. They wanted to use Thunder's story as a model for changing perceptions within the industry. "We've been following what you've accomplished," the Federation director explained during his visit, "not just with Thunder, but with all the horses you've rehabilitated. You're challenging long-held beliefs about what makes a horse valuable." The timing was perfect. Sarah had been documenting their rehabilitation methods, creating a comprehensive guide based on their experiences. With the Federation's support, this knowledge could reach a much wider audience. The program they developed was revolutionary. It combined traditional training techniques with specialized approaches for working with traumatized or neglected horses. But more than that, it emphasized the importance of emotional connection and understanding each horse's individual story. Thunder played a crucial role in developing the program. His intuitive ability to connect with troubled horses provided insights that shaped their approach. They discovered that rescued horses often exhibited unique problem-solving abilities and resilience that could translate into exceptional athletic capabilities. One breakthrough came with a thoroughbred named Phoenix, rescued from an abandoned improperty. The horse was considered dangerous, prone to explosive behavior that made him unsuitable for riding. Traditional training methods had failed, and he was at risk of being euthanized. Sarah noticed something familiar in Phoenix's eyes, the same trapped intelligence she'd seen in Thunder years ago. Instead of forcing compliance, she gave Phoenix choices, allowing him to participate in his own rehabilitation. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, Phoenix not only accepted a rider, but showed extraordinary talent for cross-country jumping. His ability to think independently, once seen as a liability, became his greatest strength on challenging courses. You see, Sarah explained to a group of visiting trainers, what we often label as difficult behavior is sometimes just frustrated potential. These horses aren't broken, they're just speaking a language we haven't learned to understand yet. The Federation program attracted attention from international equestrian organizations. Representatives from various countries visited Thunder's Haven to study their methods. Each success story added credibility to their approach. A documentary filmmaker arrived to capture their work, following several horses through their rehabilitation journey. The resulting film, Second Chance's The Thunder Legacy, premiered at major film festivals, bringing their message to audiences far beyond the equestrian world. One particularly touching moment captured in the film involved a young girl named Maya and a rescued Mustang called Spirit. Maya had lost her leg to cancer, and traditional riding programs had turned her away, deeming it too risky. At Thunder's Haven, she found not just acceptance, but opportunity. Spirit, who had been captured from the wild and then abandoned, formed an immediate connection with Maya. Together, they developed their own language of communication. Within a year, they were competing in para-equestrian events, inspiring others to look beyond perceived limitations. The success of the program led to an unexpected honor. Sarah was invited to speak at the World Equestrian Forum in Switzerland. Standing before an audience of industry leaders, she shared not just Thunder's story, but the stories of countless other horses who had found their purpose at the sanctuary. Every horse has a gift, she told them. Our responsibility isn't to force them into predetermined molds, but to help them discover their unique contributions. When we do that, we often find that our broken horses become our greatest teachers. The forum marked a turning point in how rescue horses were viewed in professional equestrian sports. Major competitions began, including special categories for rescued and rehabilitated horses. Training programs worldwide started incorporating Thunder's Haven's methods. Back at the sanctuary, they celebrated each small victory. A horse taking its first treat from human hands, a traumatized mare allowing herself to be groomed, a former show horse rediscovering the joy of running just for the pleasure of it. Thunder, now in his mature years, continued to inspire. Though he no longer competed, his presence brought comfort to nervous horses and confidence to uncertain riders. He seemed to understand his role as mentor and ambassador, carrying himself with gentle dignity that commanded respect. The sanctuary expanded to include educational programs for at-risk youth. Children who struggled in traditional settings often found purpose and confidence working with the rescue horses. The parallel between their own struggles and the horses' journeys created powerful connections. One program paired troubled teens with rescue horses for a 6-week course. The transformations were remarkable. Kids who had given up on themselves found hope in the horses' stories of redemption. Many went on to become advocates for animal welfare and rescue work. Sarah established a scholarship program, ensuring that financial constraints wouldn't prevent anyone from participating in programs. It was funded in part by a book she wrote about Thunder's journey, which became an international bestseller. The book's success brought new opportunities for advocacy. Sarah was invited to testify before legislative committees considering stronger protections for horses. Thunder's story helped change laws and improve conditions for working and competition. Horses. As the sanctuary's influence grew, they began receiving requests to help establish similar programs in other countries. Sarah developed a training curriculum for other rescue facilities, sharing their methods and philosophy. One autumn evening, as Sarah walked among the paddocks doing final checks, she found Thunder standing at his favorite spot overlooking the valley. Though his face was now graced with grey, his eyes still held the same bright intelligence that had caught her attention at the auction so many years ago. "Look what you started, boy," she said softly, running her hand along his neck. Thunder turned to nuzzle her pocket, making her laugh. Some things never changed. He still knew exactly where she kept his treats. A group of new rescue horses grazed peacefully nearby, their rough coats and uncertain manner reminiscent of Thunder's early days. But in their eyes, Sarah could see the same spark of possibility she'd recognized in Thunder. The potential, just waiting to be discovered. The sanctuary had become more than just a place of rehabilitation. It was a center of hope, a proving ground for the belief that every life has value and purpose. Each horse that found its way there became part of a larger story about the power of second chances and the transformative impact of unconditional love. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come from that fateful day at the auction. Thunder's $50 price tag had seemed like a risk then. Now it stood as a powerful reminder that true value can't be measured in dollars and cents. Their legacy wasn't just in the horses they'd saved or the lives they'd touched. It was in the ripple effect of their work, in the changing attitudes toward rescue horses, in the growing understanding that sometimes the greatest champions come from the most unlikely beginnings. Thunder's gentle nickering brought Sarah back to the present moment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new horses needing help, new opportunities to make a difference. But for now, she was content to stand with her partner and friend, watching the stars emerge over the sanctuary they'd built together, a place where broken spirits healed and impossible dreams took flight. As Thunder's legacy continued to grow, Sarah received an invitation that would take their mission in an unexpected direction. The Global Equine Education Summit, hosted in Dubai, wanted to feature Thunder's Haven as a model for revolutionizing horse rehabilitation worldwide. The summit would bring together experts from every corner of the equestrian world, but what caught Sarah's attention was their youth program. Young riders from underprivileged communities worldwide would attend on scholarship, learning about horsemanship and animal welfare. "This is exactly what we've been working toward," Sarah told May, reviewing the invitation. "A chance to share our methods with the next generation." Sarah prepared a special presentation documenting not just Thunder's journey, but the scientific research they'd conducted at the sanctuary. They had discovered patterns in rescue horse rehabilitation that challenged traditional training methods. Their data showed that horses given agency in their recovery often progressed faster and showed greater aptitude for complex tasks. The Dubai International Equestrian Center was a marvel of modern architecture, but Sarah's presentation focused on the simple truths they'd learned at Thunder's Haven. She shared videos of their work, including one particularly moving clip of Thunder helping a traumatized mare overcome her fear of human contact. "The key," Sarah explained to the rapt audience, "isn't in forcing change, but in creating an environment where healing can happen naturally. Every horse has its own timeline, its own way of processing past experiences." The youth program participants were especially moved by Thunder's story. Many came from communities where horses were still primarily seen as working animals, and the idea of rehabilitation was novel. A 15-year-old girl from rural India approached Sarah after the presentation. "In my village, we have many horses that work in brick kilns," she said softly. "They are treated as machines, but after hearing about Thunder, I want to start a program to help them." This conversation sparked an idea. Working with the summit organizers, Sarah developed a mentorship program connecting young horse enthusiasts from different countries with established rehabilitation centers. Thunder's Haven would serve as the primary training facility. The program's first success story came from an unexpected place. Miguel, a teenager from a small town in Mexico, had been saving abandoned horses in his community using techniques he'd learned from Thunder's Haven's online resources. Through the mentorship program, he received formal training at the sanctuary. "Where I come from," Miguel shared during his training, "people say rescue horses are worthless. But Thunder showed us that every horse deserves a chance to prove them wrong." Returning home, Miguel established a rehabilitation center that became a model for similar programs across Latin America. His work with former working horses demonstrated that even animals with years of harsh treatment could recover and thrive. The success of the mentorship program led to an even more ambitious project. Thunder's Haven partnered with international aid organizations to establish satellite rehabilitation centers in developing countries. Each center would combine horse rehabilitation with youth education and community development. The first center opened in Morocco, where working horses often face difficult conditions. The program not only helped rehabilitate injured and exhausted animals, but also trained local youth in modern horsemanship and veterinary care. Sarah traveled to help establish these centers, but her most powerful tool was Thunder's story. It transcended language and cultural barriers, showing people everywhere that compassion and patience could transform lives, both equine and human. Back at Thunder's Haven, they welcomed trainees from around the world. Each brought unique perspectives and traditional knowledge that enriched their understanding of horse rehabilitation. A student from Mongolia shared ancient techniques for working with traumatized horses. A young trainer from Argentina introduced methods used with rescued polo ponies. These cultural exchanges led to innovations in their rehabilitation programs. They discovered that combining traditional wisdom with modern research created more effective healing environments for rescued horses. Thunder, now in his senior years, remained the heart of the sanctuary. Though retired from active training, his gentle wisdom continued to impact every horse and human who met him. He had an uncanny ability to sense which horses needed extra attention, often standing watch over newcomers during their first difficult nights. A memorable moment came when they received a group of horses rescued from a neglect situation. Among them was a stallion so aggressive that traditional facilities had refused to take him. But when Thunder was turned out in the adjacent paddock, something remarkable happened. The stallion's aggressive behavior ceased almost immediately. He watched Thunder intently, mimicking his calm demeanor. Within weeks, the stallion's transformation was so complete that he became one of their most successful therapy horses. Thunder teaches us something new every day, Sarah told a group of visiting veterinary students. He shows us that leadership doesn't come from dominance, but from wisdom and compassion. The sanctuary's research department, established in partnership with several universities, documented these interactions. Their studies on horse social behavior and emotional intelligence were revolutionizing understanding of equine rehabilitation. They discovered that horses like Thunder, who had overcome trauma, often developed exceptional emotional intelligence. These horses became naturally gifted therapy animals, particularly effective with children dealing with trauma or disabilities. The implications of their research extended beyond horse rehabilitation. Their findings about resilience and recovery were being studied by psychologists working with trauma survivors. The parallel between human and equine emotional healing opened new avenues for therapeutic intervention. Sarah began receiving invitations to speak at psychology conferences, sharing insights from their work with rescue horses. The concept of Thunder's method, allowing healing to happen organically through supportive relationships, was being adapted for human trauma recovery programs. As their influence grew, Thunder's haven faced new challenges. The demand for their programs far exceeded their capacity. Sarah worked to balance expansion with maintaining the quality and integrity of their approach. They developed a certification program for other facilities wanting to implement their methods. Each certified center had to maintain strict standards of care and rehabilitation, ensuring Thunder's legacy of compassion would be properly carried forward. The sanctuary also established a research fellowship program, bringing together scholars from various fields to study different aspects of horse rehabilitation. Their work combined veterinary science, psychology, and ethology, creating a more complete understanding of equine emotional recovery. One evening, as Sarah walked through the sanctuary with a group of new fellowship recipients, they stopped to watch Thunder in his paddock. Despite his age, he moved with the same quiet dignity that had first caught her attention at the auction so many years ago. A young researcher asked, "What's the most important lesson Thunder has taught you?" Sarah thought for a moment before responding. That transformation isn't about becoming something different. It's about having the courage to become who you truly are. Thunder was always extraordinary. He just needed someone to see it and give him the chance to show others. As they continued their walk, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come from that day at the auction. Thunder's $50 price tag had seemed like a risk then, but it had yielded returns beyond measure, not in money, but in lives transformed and hope restored. The sanctuary had become more than just a place for horse rehabilitation. It was a center for global change, spreading a message of compassion and possibility to every corner of the world. Each success story, each rehabilitated horse, each trained student became part of a growing movement, proving that every life has value and potential. Thunder's legacy would live on through the countless lives he'd touched, the programs he'd inspired, and the changes he'd sparked in the way people viewed rescue horses. But perhaps his greatest gift was the simple truth he'd demonstrated, that sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with a single act of belief. Time had touched Thunder gently, adding wisdom to his bearing without diminishing his spirit. Now in his advanced years, he had taken on a role that no one could have predicted, becoming a living legend whose influence reached far beyond the sanctuary's boundaries. The United Nations educational program reached out to Thunder's Haven with an extraordinary proposal. They wanted to create a global curriculum based on Thunder's story, using it to teach children about resilience, compassion, and the power of believing in possibilities. Your horse's journey, the UN representative explained, demonstrates universal truths about overcoming adversity. It transcends cultural and linguistic barriers. The curriculum development brought new energy to the sanctuary. Educational experts worked alongside Sarah to craft lessons that would resonate with children worldwide. They created interactive programs where students could follow Thunder's journey from the auction to international acclaim, learning valuable life lessons along the way. An unexpected breakthrough came when they piloted the program in a troubled inner-city school. Students who had been labeled difficult or unmotivated connected deeply with Thunder's story of being underestimated and overlooked. "He was like me," one student wrote in his journal. "Nobody thought he could do anything special, but he proved them wrong, and now I know I can too." The program expanded rapidly, adapted into multiple languages and cultural contexts. In refugee camps, Thunder's story helped children process their own experiences of displacement and find hope for the future. In communities affected by poverty, it inspired young people to look beyond their current circumstances. Thunder himself seemed to understand the importance of his role. Though he no longer participated in physical demonstrations, his presence during school visits had an almost magical effect. Children who were usually restless or disruptive would sit quietly, captivated by his gentle demeanor and the wisdom in his eyes. One particularly touching moment came during a visit from a group of children from a war-torn region. Many had experienced severe trauma and rarely spoke. When Thunder approached the fence where they stood, one little girl who hadn't spoken in months suddenly whispered, "He understands." The sanctuary developed a special program for children with communication difficulties. Working with speech therapists and psychologists, they discovered that many children who struggled to connect with humans found it easier to open up around Thunder. "There's something about him," a child psychologist observed. "He creates a space where healing feels possible." These children sense that he's been through his own journey of recovery, and it gives them permission to begin their own. The scientific community took notice. Researchers began studying what they called the Thunder effect, the unique ability of rescued horses to facilitate emotional healing in humans. Their findings suggested that horses who had overcome trauma developed heightened empathy and emotional intelligence. Sarah was invited to present these findings at a prestigious psychology conference. "What we're discovering," she explained, is that the very experiences that could have broken these horses instead made them exceptionally gifted at helping others heal. Thunder's influence extended into unexpected areas. Business schools began using his story to teach leadership principles. His journey from rejection to championship demonstrated valuable lessons about recognizing potential and nurturing talent in unexpected places. A major technology company incorporated Thunder's rehabilitation process into their employee development program. If a horse written off as worthless could become a champion, their HR director explained, imagine what people could achieve if we looked past traditional metrics of success. The sanctuary received a grant to document Thunder's methods scientifically. They installed sophisticated monitoring equipment to study how his presence affected other horses' recovery rates. The data showed remarkable results. Horses placed near Thunder's paddock recovered faster and showed lower stress levels than those in other areas. One day, a renowned animal behaviorist visited to observe Thunder's interaction with a newly rescued horse. The new arrival was particularly traumatized, refusing to let anyone approach. Thunder positioned himself in the adjacent paddock, maintaining a calm, steady presence. "Watch this," Sarah whispered, as Thunder demonstrated a behavior they'd seen many times before. He began grazing peacefully, occasionally glancing at the nervous newcomer with gentle interest. Gradually, the rescued horse began mimicking Thunder's relaxed behavior. "He's teaching by example," the behaviorist noted, "but more than that, he's showing empathy. He remembers his own journey and knows exactly what that horse needs right now." The sanctuary established a dedicated research center named the Thunder Institute for Equine Rehabilitation Studies. It brought together experts from various fields: veterinary science, psychology, education, and animal behavior, to study and document the unique aspects of their rehabilitation program. Thunder's advancing age didn't diminish his impact. If anything, his senior years brought a new dimension to his influence. He became a symbol of grace and dignity in aging, showing that wisdom and purpose could deepen with time. Young horses naturally gravitated toward him, seeming to sense his experience and understanding. He had an uncanny ability to calm nervous stallions and comfort frightened foals. His mere presence in a paddock could transform the dynamics of a group of horses. Sarah often found herself watching Thunder with visiting experts, explaining how his behavior had shaped their entire approach to rehabilitation. "He taught us that healing isn't just about physical recovery," she would say. "It's about restoring dignity, confidence, and trust." The sanctuary began hosting international symposiums, bringing together people from various fields to discuss the broader implications of Thunder's legacy. Educators, therapists, business leaders, and animal welfare advocates shared how his story had influenced their work. During one such gathering, a neuroscientist presented research on how Thunder's story activated empathy centers in the brain. "When people hear about the $50 horse who became a champion," she explained, "it challenges their preconceptions about potential and worth." Thunder's daily routine now included regular visits from filmmakers, researchers, and students, all documenting different aspects of his work. Yet he remained unchanged by the attention, maintaining the same quiet dignity that had marked his character from the beginning. One spring morning, as Sarah watched Thunder gentling a nervous new rescue, she realized that his greatest gift hadn't been his competitive achievements or even his role in establishing the sanctuary. It was the way he had transformed the very definition of value in the equestrian world. The $50 auction horse had become priceless, not because of what he could do, but because of what he could teach. His legacy lived in every rescued horse that found its purpose, every child who discovered their potential, and every person who learned to look past surface appearances to see the true worth within. As Thunder stood in the golden morning light, his coat still gleaming despite his advanced years, Sarah saw in him the same spirit that had caught her eye at the auction so long ago. He was still teaching, still inspiring, still showing the world that sometimes the greatest champions come from the most unlikely beginnings. His story had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of second chances, and a reminder that true value isn't measured in dollars or pedigrees, but in the capacity to touch hearts and transform lives. Thunder nickered softly, drawing Sarah's attention back to the present moment. She smiled, reaching for the treats she always carried. Some things never changed, and in that simple gesture of connection, she felt the depth of everything they had achieved together, knowing that their work would continue to inspire long after both of them were gone. The final chapter of Thunder's journey brought a profound culmination to a story that had touched countless lives. As winter settled over Sterling Valley, Thunder's Haven received news that would cement their legacy in ways none could have imagined. The International Equestrian Federation announced the creation of the Thunder Award, an annual recognition given to individuals or organizations that demonstrated exceptional work in horse rehabilitation and youth empowerment. The award would carry substantial funding to support continued efforts in rescue and rehabilitation work worldwide. Thunder's story changed how we view potential, the Federation president declared. This award ensures that change continues for generations to come. The announcement coincided with Thunder's 20th anniversary at the sanctuary. 2 decades had passed since that fateful day at the auction, and the transformation went far beyond one horse's journey. Thunder's Haven had grown into a global network of rehabilitation centers, each carrying forward the principles that had started with a $50 bet on a broken horse. To celebrate this milestone, the sanctuary organized a special event that brought together people from every chapter of Thunder's story. The auction worker who had handed Sarah the lead rope that first day came, marveling at how the trembling horse he remembered had become a worldwide symbol of hope. Eleanor, now in her 80s but still sharp as ever, watched Thunder with knowing eyes. "I knew you saw something special in him," she told Sarah, "but even I couldn't have imagined this." Madison Wells, who had once dismissed Thunder as worthless, now ran one of the most successful rescue-focused breeding programs in the country. "He made me question everything I thought I knew about horses," she admitted, "about potential, about value, about what really matters in this industry." The celebration included something unprecedented, a worldwide live stream connecting Thunder's Haven with its satellite facilities across the globe. Young riders from Morocco to Mongolia shared how Thunder's story had inspired their own work with rescue horses. A girl in Kenya showed how she'd used Thunder's rehabilitation techniques to help former working horses find new purpose as therapy animals. A team in Brazil demonstrated how they'd adapted the sanctuary's methods to rehabilitate horses rescued from neglectful situations. But the most powerful moment came when Sarah led Thunder into the main arena. Though his coat showed the silver of advanced age, his presence still commanded attention. Children who had grown up reading about him fell silent in awe. Veteran trainers, who had followed his journey, blinked back tears. Thunder moved with the same quiet dignity that had marked his entire life, but now it carried the weight of wisdom and experience. He approached a group of recently rescued horses watching from a nearby paddock, and in that moment everyone witnessed the essence of his legacy. The nervous rescues, who had been hesitant around humans, stretched their necks toward him, drawn by his calm confidence. It was as if he was showing them their own potential, just as he had shown it to countless others over the years. Sarah shared new findings from the Thunder Institute's research. They had documented how rescue horses, when rehabilitated using Thunder's methods, developed extraordinary abilities to connect with troubled youth. The data showed remarkable parallels between the horses' recovery journeys and the emotional healing of the children they helped. What Thunder taught us, Sarah explained, goes beyond horsemanship. He showed us that healing is a collaborative journey. When we give someone, human or horse, the space to recover their dignity, they often discover gifts they never knew they had. The celebration concluded with the announcement of a new initiative. The Thunder Foundation would provide full scholarships for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to study equine rehabilitation and therapy. The program would ensure that Thunder's approach to healing continued to evolve and grow. As twilight settled over the sanctuary, Sarah spent quiet time with Thunder in his favorite paddock. He had exceeded every medical expectation, thriving well into his senior years, but she knew their time together was growing shorter. "You know what amazes me most?" she told him, stroking his graying face. "It's not the championships or the awards. It's how many lives you've touched, how many people you've helped believe in themselves." Thunder's gentle nickering seemed to carry all the wisdom of his remarkable journey. From the broken horse at the auction to an international symbol of hope, he had transformed not just himself, but the very way people thought about potential and worth. The sanctuary had documented over 1,000 successful rehabilitations, each one carrying forward Thunder's legacy. But the numbers didn't capture the true impact. The renewed hope in a child's eyes, the restored dignity of a rescued horse, the countless moments of healing and connection that had started with one person believing in one horse. Sarah received a letter from a young girl in Australia who had started a rescue program inspired by Thunder's story. "I was going to give up," the girl wrote, "but then I remembered how Thunder never gave up. Now every time I look at a rescue horse, I try to see them through your eyes, not as they are, but as they could be." Thunder's story had become part of the curriculum in veterinary schools and equine therapy programs worldwide. His journey from auction reject to global inspiration demonstrated principles that transcended the equestrian world: the power of belief, the importance of second chances, the transformative impact of unconditional love. The sanctuary established the Thunder Archives, collecting stories, photographs, and testimonials from people whose lives had been touched by his journey. The archives became a resource for researchers studying the human-animal bond and the nature of resilience. One of the most moving collections came from children who had participated in the sanctuary's programs over the years. Their artwork and letters painted a picture of Thunder through innocent eyes, not just as a champion show horse, but as a teacher, friend, and symbol of hope. As night fell over Sterling Valley, Thunder stood at his fence, watching over his domain. The sanctuary was quiet, except for the soft sounds of horses settling in for the night. In adjacent paddocks, new rescues rested peacefully, already beginning their own journeys of transformation. Sarah looked at the stars emerging above them, remembering that first night when she'd brought Thunder home. She had believed in him. Then, seeing past his broken exterior to the champion within, but even she couldn't have imagined how far that belief would carry them. Thunder's legacy would live on in every rescued horse that found its purpose, every child who discovered their potential, every person who learned to look past surface appearances to see the true worth within. His story had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of second chances, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest champions come from the most unlikely beginnings. The $50 horse had become priceless, not because of his achievements or accolades, but because he had shown the world that value isn't measured in dollars or pedigrees. It's measured in the capacity to touch hearts, transform lives, and inspire others to believe in the power of their own potential. As Thunder rested his head gently on Sarah's shoulder, their familiar gesture of connection, she felt the depth of everything they had achieved together. Their journey had started with a simple act of belief, but it had grown into something that would continue to inspire and transform lives long after both of them were gone. In that quiet moment, under the vast starlit sky, Sarah understood that this was Thunder's greatest victory, not the championships or the acclaim, but the countless lives he had touched, the hearts he had healed, and the hope he had restored. From a forgotten auction horse to a global symbol of transformation, Thunder had proven that every life has value, every heart holds potential, and sometimes the greatest miracles start with just one person willing to believe. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.